Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree, and today I'm doing the top 25 Generation 1 Transformers Autobots. This is for my toy fans out there. I'll be uploading this video to Bree's Toys as well, just for the extra exposure, so people know what other videos they can expect. Excuse me. So, the original Transformers is one of my favorite toy lines of all time. I'm a huge Transformers nut. I was born in 82. The Transformers came on the scene in 84. So, by the time I was old enough to know what they were and start paying attention to them, the cartoon was already over. The comic books were winding down, and we were already in the late G1 era. So most of my toys that I had from my childhood would have been like 87, 88, 89, before Generation 2 came on the scene. So I had a lot of Pretenders and the various Masters, Power Masters, Headmasters, etc. But there's also a lot of toys I discovered over the years later on after watching the cartoon, becoming a collector. So there's a variety of toys on this list. Some of them are going to be specific from my childhood, and that's why they made the list, because I had them as a kid, and I thought they were a really cool toy, and I'll talk about it. Or it's a really cool character or an important figure to the line, and so I'll talk about that. This is just the Autobots, but it's not going to just be a whole list of Autobot cars from the cartoon. Number 25 is Power Glide. I like Power Glide basically as a Transformers toy, because even though he's a Transformer made by Takara, imported by Hasbro, he looks like a GoBot. He really does. He has a very simplistic design. There's at least 2 or 3 GoBot airplanes that are very similar style to him, very similar transformations. So I like Power Glide because he reminds me of the GoBots. You could very easily put Power Glide in with your GoBots and he would fit in. Or you could get the GoBot that's basically the same plane, more or less. Spray paint it red and pretend it's Power Glide, and you're good to go. Number 24 is Goldbug. Goldbug is one of the Throttlebots. Now, I like this toy for a couple of reasons, and it made the list for a couple of reasons. Reason number 1, it's a reformatted version of Bumblebee. It's actually the very second version of Bumblebee in the entire history of the Transformers toy line. So there's a little bit of a historical significance, because it's the first time Bumblebee was redesigned. Yeah, but he was also renamed Goldbug, but it's still Bumblebee. I also like it because even though it's a plastic car, just like the original Bumblebee, it does still have rubber tires. But like the other gimmick of the other Throttlebots, the gimmick is it has a pullback motor. So you can pull the robot back in robot mode, and he can drive forward, or the car in car mode, and he can drive forward, which is really neat. A really neat little late G1 gimmick. Number 23 is Ironhide. I know some people are going to scoff at this because of the whole controversy surrounding his lack of a head. I don't give a shit. Couple of reasons. First of all, I got into the toys before the cartoon, and I actually take a toys first approach. So I prefer my Transformers, even modern toys, to resemble the original toys more than I want them to resemble the comic book or the cartoon. Ironhide, the toy, came first. I also like it because, not just because the original toy was supposed to be a mech, and it looks like a mech, but also because he actually... well, the vehicle mode, the van, is a really good... The toy van, it's a really good toy van, and I actually used to have not the Volkswagen or Nissan or whatever he's supposed to be, but I did have a red van as a kid. My parents did, I should say. It was a Chevy van, but it was red, and so it reminded me of Ironhide. But also, I kind of like that his toy design is almost in a way, if you look at it, if you squint hard enough, reminiscent of Johnny Five from Short Circuit. And I think that's pretty cool. The lack of a head is actually kind of false. I mean, he kind of has a head. It's just hidden behind his windshield, which serves also as his chest. So you kind of do have to use your imagination, especially if you're basing your idea of what he should look like on the cartoon. But it's still a solid toy. And like the other early G1 cars, he still has die-cast metal and rubber tires. Number 22 is Windcharger. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. There's not a lot of the Diaclone cars on this list. I don't despise the Diaclone cars. They're neat. But I had GoBots first. I'm going to be upfront with you on that. So I do tend to favor the G1 Transformers more reminiscent or have more in common with the GoBots than the other ones. And I like Windcharger because, again, he could pass as a GoBot. I also like Windcharger because he's a cool-looking car. He's a nice, nifty-looking little race car. And he's red, and I like red cars. Number 21 is a very late G1 era toy. One of the heavily gimmickized, or gimmicked, I guess is the correct word, sublines in the franchise. And not the only toy from this subline to make the list, fair warning, but one of the better ones. And it's the MicroMaster Race Car Patrol. As far as Autobots go, the Race Car Patrol to me feels like the most like an Autobot team. You know, they're race cars, obviously. And the MicroMasters, I used to hate them when I was a kid, but they've kind of grown on me. So they're pretty neat. Number 20 actually is an Autobot car, but not a Diaclone Autobot car. It's one from the movie, Transformers the movie. And not my favorite character in the movie, but my favorite toy from the movie. Pretty much. And it's Blur. I don't like the robot mode of this toy, but the vehicle mode is really fucking cool. I really love the vehicle mode of Blur. The robot mode is passable, but not terrible, but the vehicle mode is awesome. Number 19 is also kind of from the movie, but it's actually a modified reiteration of it, and it's a Target Master Cup. Now, Cup, again, another character didn't interest me that much in the movie. Did hate him, but I was like, okay, give me somebody else, please. I liked him better as a character than I liked Blur, but not as much as I liked Ultra Magnus. He was like the star for me. But anyways, I like the Target Master version of Cup just because it incorporates the Target Master gimmick. Otherwise, the vehicle of Cup is really good, but he actually has a really good robot mode, all things considered. So it's a pretty well-rounded toy, but I just prefer the Target Master version. Number 18, and I've actually showed this one off in my collection, sort of. I don't have the whole thing, but it's Pretender Cloudburst. I have the inner robot, and I've only ever had the inner robot. I've never had his outer shell. But it's a good, like, I guess, spaceship, airplane type thing, futuristic aircraft type vehicle. And he actually has a really decent Cybertronian robot mode, which I really enjoy. My favorite part of the later G1 toys, you know, the Masters, the Pretenders, etc., is they were more futuristic and Cybertronian in their design. You know, I like, don't get me wrong, the realistic looking Diaclone cars and the Micro Man cars from the, you know, first two waves. But I actually prefer the futuristic sci-fi stuff because I'm into sci-fi stuff. You know, cars are cool, but like, you know, sci-fi cars are even cooler. Number 17 is not the only Diaclone Autobot car on this list, but he's one of my favorite ones, and it's Hound. I like Hound for a couple of reasons. One, he's a Jeep, and I think that's a little more interesting than just another fucking race car. You know, there's too many race cars in this toy line. Don't get me wrong, they're cool, etc., but, like, if you have one, you have them all. They're all the same fucking car, basically, more or less. Hound is kind of cool because he's a Jeep. He looks cool. His vehicle mode looks, you know, really sturdy. He has another die-cast metal car with rubber tires. His robot mode is surprisingly well designed and fairly articulated compared to his contemporary brothers at the time. So Hound is a really good one, and he's actually an interesting character in the cartoon. So I gotta shout out to Hound. Number 16 again is another Autobot mini car. A lot of my list is going to be the mini cars because, like I said, I like the mini cars better than the Diaclone cars. You know, their association with GoBots, etc. But I really love Cliff Jumper. Again, he's a red car like Windcharger. But I like Cliff Jumper because he's similar in style as Bumblebee, but he's red. And he actually has a really cool personality in the cartoon. Number 15 is Perceptor. He's the Autobot scientist, basically. And I like him because as a toy, he turns into a microscope. But he can also turn into some kind of weird sci-fi canon thing, according to the instructions. And he's got a really good robot mode. Again, surprisingly articulated for the toy line. And he's got a really good personality and an important role in the cartoon, especially the movie. Number 14, I have to put a asterisk on this one. Technically, Blaster was the very first Transformer toy I ever got as a kid. But I got him when I was like 3 or 4, and I lost him before I was like 5, when we moved from California to Kansas, between 4 and 5. So I have no memories of Blaster, the toy from my childhood, just a picture of him and my mom telling me he was your favorite toy. Oh, like, okay, cool. I wish I hadn't lost him, but I did get one years later when I was in 6th grade. I was able to trade some junk Ninja Turtles to a kid in my class for his Blaster, so I was able to get a Blaster eventually. I still have one to this day. Great toy. Love it. Very sturdy toy. I love the boombox aesthetic, the alt mode. I love that you can put tapes in his tape deck, in his chest. The buttons usually work. Mine don't because they break, and mine happens to be one of the ones that's broken. But it's still a fun toy. And again, fairly articulated for the time for the toy line. Number 13, people are going to roll their eyes or call me a liar or say nasty things in the comments, and I don't care. Number 13 is Pretender Grimlock. I love Grimlock as a character. He's one of my favorite characters. He's my favorite, by far my favorite Dinobot, obviously. Most people's favorite Dinobot. I know the toy, the dinosaur is itty bitty compared to the big one. So most people would find this toy disappointing. But again, this is the Grimlock I had as a kid. So it has that emotional, nostalgic attachment to me. But also, I love the Pretenders. And I like that this is a different take on a popular toy. Again, Grimlock, like Bumblebee, would get re-released and reimagined pretty much in nearly every toy line going forward in some way or another. So this was, again, his first redesign, which is, again, historically significant. So there's that aspect of it. And it's actually a really cool toy. And if you happen to be a Ninja Turtle fan like myself, he's a really solid stand-in for the Mauser toy if you don't happen to have one of those in your collection. Number 12, again, is not technically the first Transformer I ever got. It is the earliest one I have memories of. I got it for my 5th birthday. I still have a picture of me holding it up for the camera. I very vividly remember breaking it after I got it. I broke his legs off because my sister tricked me. And, anyways, I broke him. So I spent most of my childhood with a broken Silverbolt. But Silverbolt is one of my favorite Transformers toys because, one, he's kind of like a Sonic Jet. I don't think he's technically a Concorde, but he's like a Sonic Jet in that style. Again, not the greatest articulation in the aerial bots or the other Scramble City Collector combiner bots, and I call them Scramble City combiner bots. I don't use the German word some Transformers fans use. Nothing against German as a language. I have German heritage. I studied German in college. I just prefer, the Scramble City combiner bots over the other word, is all. But Silverbolt is a really solid toy. He's got a couple of different alt modes. He turns into a jet, but he can also turn into a ramp, which can be attached to Autobot City Metroplex, which is pretty fucking cool. And he can combine with the other aerial bots to form Superion. Speaking of Autobot City, number 11 actually is Metroplex. I love Metroplex for so many reasons. One, it's a pretty solid toy. It's a big toy. Big, solid. And I'm not just saying solid as an adjective. I mean, it's actually like a sturdy toy. It's a very heavy toy. Very well built. It's got tons of play features. It's a robot, a giant robot, a kaiju almost. Or almost like a Power Rangers Megazord. He is as big as Megazord, by the way. He can stand toe-to-toe with Megazord. But also, he can transform into two alt modes. One is Autobot City, obviously, which is a little play set for your mini cars and your smaller Scramble City collectible combiners, which are good. It adds lots of play value to the toy line. But also, he can transform into a battle station or kind of like a base mode where he can attack the Decepticons or defend against the Decepticons, like he was used in the movie. Although the movie version was not based on the toy, it's still pretty fucking cool. And again, extremely articulated for the size of the toy and for the time he was released in comparison to other toys in the toy line. Now we're into the top 10, the best of the best. These are the best Autobot toys in the Transformers G1, according to me, obviously. Number 10 is Micromaster Base Countdown. There were a few Micromaster bases, but Countdown is the best, in my opinion. It's a space shuttle and space base, basically. It's kind of like a scaled-down version of Omega Supreme. Now, it doesn't turn into a robot like Omega Supreme does. It's basically, its alt mode is it's a space shuttle or it's a space base battle station. Pretty cool play set for your Micromasters and compatible with your Micro Machines play sets, by the way, if you want to go that route, which is a pretty cool thing to do. Number 9, another version of this toy already made the list, and while the other one is the one I had in my childhood, I gotta give props to the original Dinobot Grimlock. The original Diaclone Grimlock Transformer is one of the best action figures in the toy line, and out of all the Diaclones, he's the most articulated. Like, he has really good standard action figure articulation for a Diaclone car robot, whereas most of them are basically bricks with a head. So he's a really good rock solid toy, and he's a motherfucking T-Rex, goddammit. I mean, he's fucking cool. And I love him in the cartoon. He's so awesome and fun and lovable in the cartoon. And really awesome reimagining of him in the comic book, surprisingly. Very interesting character. Number 8, number 7, and number 6 are all mini cars. Cosmos is number 8. He's a UFO. I love sci-fi stuff. Again, he's very similar to the GoBot UFO, whose name I can't remember right now. Number 7 is Warpath. He's a tank. Again, a red toy. You'll notice a theme. And also, he's actually fairly well articulated, as a lot of the mini cars are, for the timeline, for this period. And Warpath is actually a pretty interesting character in the cartoon, but he's also a cool toy. Number 6, though, beats them all. It's Beachcomber. Now, I have a special connection to Beachcomber. I had, when I was, I want to say 12, I had Generation 2 Beachcomber, the green one. Shiny metal green one. He was cool, but he was blue in the cartoon, so I used to fiddle with the color on the TV whenever he was in an episode, so that he would be green, but like everybody else would be off. But I didn't care, because, I was a dumb kid. Beachcomber is basically a dune buggy, which again is an interesting, different type of vehicle than a standard race car, which I like. Most of my favorite mini-bots, or cars in general, are Transformers that don't necessarily turn into race cars. Except for number 5, the only Autobot Diaclone race car to make this list, mind you, and it's Jazz. By far the best car design out of all of them. He's a fucking Porsche, for God's sake. Beautiful fucking car. I know, there are 2 Lamborghinis, actually 3 if you count Red Alert, in the toy line, but the Porsche is a better car than the Lamborghini. Come at me, I don't care. None of us can afford any of these cars, so it doesn't fucking matter. It's all, fairy tale, and in my fairy tale world, I'd rather have a Porsche than a Lamborghini. Jazz is also cool. Like his Autobot brothers, he's a die-cast metal car with rubber tires. His robot mode, he's armed to the teeth, but he's got the best looking robot mode out of all the Autobot cars. He looks like a robot, like a living alien robot, like he's supposed to. The rest of them look like something out of Short Circuit or Evolver or Chopping Mall or something like that, some low-budget B-movie. But he looks like something out of a fucking Terminator or Aliens, a big-budget sci-fi movie. RoboCop. He looks like a real robot, whereas the other ones just kind of sort of look like a Zumba or Roomba or whatever the fuck it's called with legs. He's a really good toy and one of the best characters in the cartoon. Still to this day pisses me off that Michael Dumbass Bay killed him in the first Transformer movie, but it is what it is. Number 4, to some people would be higher on this list, because he's the motherfucking man himself. One of the best toys, has been in almost all the toy lines in some way or another, although not technically in every toy line, because of trademarks and fuddy-duddy stuff. It's fucking Bumblebee. The original OG yellow Volkswagen Beetle. Plastic, mini car with rubber tires. Yes, he has rubber tires. Really good articulation for a mini-bot. Well, standard for the mini-bots, actually. But a really good looking toy. Really good looking car. It's a Beetle. We all love Beetles. We watched Herbie as kids. And it's yellow. Yellow is the best looking color for a car, next to red. If your car can't be red, yellow is your second choice. There actually is, however, a red variant of the Bumblebee toy out there as well. So that's a fun variant to go after if you're rich. And he's the star of the cartoon. He's literally the character we're supposed to, as kids, connect with. Because he's the one that hangs out with the kid of the cartoon, which is Spike Witwicky. Anyways, I love fucking Bumblebee. Number 3 makes the list for a handful of reasons, multiple reasons. One, again, it's a toy from my childhood, obviously. But also, it's a really good pretender. It is a pretender, by the way. And I would argue the best pretender out of all of the pretenders. because it has the most play options out of all the Pretenders, I would argue. It's Ultra Pretender Skyhammer. Now, Skyhammer comes in 3 components. The outer shell is a giant sci-fi spaceship that looks very reminiscent of the flying jet robot thingies in Terminator. The inner robot, the first inner robot, the inner shell robot, I should say, is sort of a hover car type craft, very reminiscent of the speeder in Star Wars that Luke Skywalker trades for the money to get onto the Millennium Falcon. Very reminiscent of that. What's cool about it is you open up the spaceship and inside is the hovercraft. And the hovercraft itself can transform into a robot, which is a Pretender shell. So, a robot with a human face. Not a bad looking toy. Very, very limited, bricky articulation, but you're used to that with G1 toys, so it's standard, it's fine. But also, if you open him up, inside is an even smaller Pretender robot, which is the main actual robot of Skyhammer. Itty bitty little guy with really good articulation. His arms and legs both punch and kick. Very good. He transforms into like a little mini car, which I've already told you how much I like the mini cars. And he's actually pretty good as a mini car. Not great, but very, futuristic design. So again, not your standard boring ass race car like all the others. Not as neat as a VW Beetle, but pretty cool. But also, he can pilot the spaceship or the hovercraft. They actually have a seat in the hovercraft that he can sit in and pilot it. And there's a little space for him to stand up and man a gun on the spaceship where he can pilot it as well as man the gun. So it's a really cool toy. It's a really fucking cool toy. However, buyer beware, because this toy is plagued with the infamous gold plastic syndrome, which means his toes do break off. The hovercraft has the gold toes that break. The robot inside has the gold toes that break. And the missiles on the spacecraft are made out of the gold plastic that break. The spaceship itself is made out of the gold plastic, and it breaks. And yes, mine broke. All of this shit broke on mine. Is my toy from my childhood. And so I just saved myself the trouble and bought pre-broken ones off of eBay because I'm going to play with them anyways. They're going to break anyway, so I just went ahead and bought broken ones. So I don't have one that's in, quote, excellent condition, but I have one that's in very well played with condition. But that's what I want because I'm going to play with it. Number 2, a lot of people are screaming at the monitor right now as soon as I say his name because he's number 2 and not number 1. And I'm going to get comments. I know I am. I'm sure of it. I don't care. It's okay. It's the original Optimus Prime. The original Optimus Prime is one of the greatest toys ever made, bar none. Like, just as a toy, it's one of the greatest toys ever made. One of the greatest action figures ever made. One of the greatest sci-fi toys ever made. And one of the greatest die-cast metal semi-trucks ever made. So it's got a lot going for it. And he's the star of the show as well. He's the grandpa, the Papa Smurf, the leader, the man, the dude everybody looks up to. The John Wayne, the hero, who unfortunately gives his life, spoilers, in a 40-year-old movie, but comes back to life later in the cartoon, so it's not much of a spoiler because he's still kicking today. The original Optimus Prime toy is so fucking cool. The full toy in vehicle mode is fucking awesome. You got a semi-truck, which is the best vehicle you can get. Fuck race cars. I want a fucking truck, damn it. And the big trucks are like where it's at. And the semi-truck disconnects from the trailer and transforms into the robot, the hero that we all idolized as kids and looked up to. Pretty good articulation for the time in the toy line. Not like superb articulation, but pretty good in comparison to other toys in the toy line. Really rock solid robot mode. He looks like the Optimus Prime from the cartoon and comic books that you're familiar with. At least enough that it's like, alright, they didn't change the design too much from the toy. So yeah, it looks like Optimus Prime. And the trailer transforms into Autobot headquarters with a robot inside that is armed with missiles. And it has some cool things, a little robot arm and a little satellite dish thingy. But it also has Roller, who has some neat attachments, including a gun. And he can run around like an R2-D2 type drone. I say R2-D2 because he sounds like R2-D2 in the cartoon, and he is kind of a drone. Which R2-D2 is not technically a drone, but it is what it is. Now you're all breathless, right? You're like, okay, if Optimus Prime is only number 2, what could possibly be number 1? Well, you could scan the rest of this list and try to extrapolate. Well, obviously it's something from her childhood. Yes. Obviously it's going to be something reminiscent of a GoBot, possibly. Maybe. And it's probably going to have multiple play styles than just one. Yes. And probably you could extrapolate a late G1 toy, and you would be actually fairly correct. The greatest Generation 1 Transformers Autobot toy is Power Master Optimus Prime. I gotcha. It is still Optimus Prime, technically. And it's more or less the same toy. You know, it's still a semi-truck with a, trailer. The trailer and truck look similar to the original, but beefed up a lot. Now, they've swapped out the die-cast parts with the rubber tires for all plastic all the way around. But it's okay because it's the good hard plastic, the clicky plastic that you want in a toy that's going to break your foot if you drop it on your toe. But it's a good toy. And armed to the motherfucking teeth. He's got guns on the top of the truck. He's got guns on the side of the truck. He comes with a Power Master engine at the front of the truck that gives him his, quote, power. The extra superpower. When transformed into robot mode, the robot mode is not as good as the robot mode in the cab of G1 Optimus Prime. I'll give you that. The truck mode is, I would argue, a better truck. It's a better toy in truck mode than it is in robot mode. However, in robot mode, you have a couple of other neat things that make up for it. One, still limited articulation, actually, to be fair, you're right. And, very comparable in some ways to the cartoon. In some ways more accurate to the cartoon, in other ways not as accurate, so it's a fair trade. And again, he's got the big guns, but the trailer, like the original Optimus Prime, the trailer transforms into a base. But this time, instead of Autobot headquarters, it's just a battle station. But it's an actual motherfucking battle station with giant fucking cannons and laser guns and fucking big-ass fucking beefy guns and armor and ramps for the other cars. A place for Optimus Prime to stand in the center and, act as a general giving orders from the battlefield. A landing pad for your flying Autobots. It's a really fucking cool toy. And, yes, from my childhood, remember when I was 5, I got that Silverbolt for my birthday? I got the Power Master Optimus Prime that following Christmas. So I had him a lot in my childhood. He was one of the toys that was like there. All of my childhood memories, this toy is there. He was my stand-in for Autobot City when I would reenact the movie, because I didn't have actual Autobot City, obviously. I didn't have Metroplex. But I'm not done yet, because the trailer can also transform into a giant kaiju-sized mega battle armor for Optimus Prime, who can transform into the head and chest of the giant robot. You can attach the guns to the giant robot, and it's ready for fucking battle. He's a little shorter than Metroplex, but he can stand head toe-to-toe to Metroplex. He comes up to his chest. So, you know, a little shorter, but he could still hold his own in a battle with Metroplex or Trypticon. Or, you know, I don't know if he could stand toe-to-toe with Scorponok. Never had a Scorponok toy, but I did have a Trypticon back in the day. He could, you know, hold his own against Trypticon. But he could, like, just walk all over the Decepticons. Like, he was a fucking kick-ass toy. And I know what you're going to say. Well, he wasn't in the cartoon. Technically, he was. Technically. Because, like I said, I was born in 82. The cartoon was on its way out when I was old enough to start watching it. But I was old enough to start watching it in Season 5. Which is the season where puppeted Power Master Optimus Prime with little Tommy. Tommy is such a common name in science fiction and horror media for some reason. But anyways, he would recap stories from the previous seasons of the cartoon, and then they would show the clips from the cartoon, and then he would come back and do the commercial bumpers, and then, you know, cap off the episode with a lesson. That was, to me, Generation 1. That was my experience with the G1 cartoon. So yes, to me, Power Master Optimus Prime was the narrator and central figure of the G1 cartoon in my life, my childhood. So it's obviously going to be one of the greatest toys. But also, it's got so many options. And if you import the Japanese upgrades, you can turn him into God Genray, also known as Power Master Prime, with Apex armor, as it's called. So he can be even more powered up, which is fucking cool. Anyways, those are my top 25 G1 Transformer Autobots. I hope you enjoyed this list. Let me know which ones you had as a kid, and which ones would be your top 5. Keep it to your top 5. Stay cool.